Hey, welcome back. Things are getting heavy. We got to have an intermission. It's like a story time, and we might do this about every 7 episodes or so, just to kind of lighten things up a little bit. I should probably give a disclaimer that I do not condone these activities, especially drinking and driving, underage alcohol consumption, and reckless abandon and endangerment. Okay, there's your disclaimer. I'll tell you a story about a van. I got to back up, and some of this you can access the background information in a previous episode called All Talk. At the same time, I was living with John Boy. I was working at this place, and hard work, hard physical, dirty work at this place. But it was a good job. The people treated me really well there, and actually, that was one of the best supervisors that I ever had. The guy that got stabbed in the back, that guy, it's in the fighting episode. But anyway, great guy, great boss. He was my immediate supervisor, and then the boss, he's actually the guy that owned the company. We're going to call him Paul. He was kind of a figurehead at this time. He was still the owner of the company, but he just kind of came in. Nobody ever knew when he was going to be there, and just a couple days a week. Just kind of, he'd sit in his office. I don't know what he did, go over billing. And once in a while, you'd see him in coveralls. And that meant, uh-oh, Paul's getting serious now. Sometimes he'd be holding a shovel. I don't know why. Coveralls and a shovel. He was like, at this time, he was probably in his 60s. And a lot of people that worked there were like, you don't want to get on Paul's bad side. I never had a problem with him, man. He always treated me fairly and fine. About this time, Paul had a lot of money. He owned the business. He owned several businesses, I think, but he owned this one, and it was a successful business. I mean, they had a fleet of, I think, 30 trucks. I don't know how many employees they had. It was a successful business. And so he had a lot of money. Well, this was right at the time Chevrolet came out with their Z71 pickup truck, which was like, have a look at that, will you? Well, Paul got one. Somehow I worked it out. I don't even think I'd been there long enough, and I can't remember. But I worked it out where I could take a week's vacation. And I had a little S10 pickup, small. It was fine. It was reliable. It just not exactly the long cruising thing, So I kind of jokingly, everybody knew I was taking this trip, and I would jokingly, hey, do you mind if I borrow your car, take my trip, ha. And I asked my immediate boss, my immediate supervisor that, I said, hey, can I take your truck, go on my trip? And he said, hell no. He knew how, some of us were living off hours. It was work hard and play even harder. And he was a great guy, don't get me wrong, but he knew. I'm not letting you borrow my used garden hose. I mean, forget it, It was just an ongoing joke as we led up to this little vacation, this little trip. So one day Paul's going through. I was like, hey, Paul, so you got a new truck? Yeah. You liking it? Is it a good truck? Oh, so far so good, I said, you ought to let me take that on my trip. I'm going on this little trip up north, and you should let me take that. And he's like, well, let me check my calendar. I'll get back with you. And I think he was serious. I was like, wow, that'd be pretty cool. I mean, it was extended cab, it was brand new. Craziness. It's a day or two, and he stops me in the hallway. And he's like, I got something going on. I'm going to need the truck. But you can take the van. I was like, are you serious? Now, I had seen this van. They would take it on family trips, and their grandkids would be in there. This was like a custom deluxe touring van. It had like the captain's chairs, 2 sets of those with a table. It had a TV in it. The back bench seat, you pushed a little button in it and went into a kind of a makeshift bed, I was like, really? I'll take you up on that. How much do I need to rent for? Nah, just take it. But you got to have it back Sunday. And I think he said like 5 o'clock or something, 4 o'clock. I don't remember. This comes in later in the story as being important. Anyway, so, yeah, take it. Wow. And I was, 18? I have no concern for fuel mileage or anything. It's just like, this is going to be awesome. My buddy Scott's going with me on the trip. And we loaded And John Boy, my roommate, you know, I'm a minor, sort of, 18. I'm not legally allowed to buy alcohol. So John Boy hooked us up, you know, and he's like, yeah, man, make me a list. I was like, well, this got to last us for the week, you know. We're going on this week trip. I give him the list, you know, and he's just, my gosh, this is a bit much, don't you think? I'm like, who are you talking to? So John Boy hooks us up with the booze. And I mean, the area behind the bench seat that folded it out into the bed thing, you know, that last bit of a van with 2 doors. We had that thing filled with 12 packs of beer, a couple bottles of whiskey in there, and it wasn't enough room, so we had to put some of them in front of the bed thing, you know. Comes day to leave. I think I left my truck at the workshop so I could hop in the van and go from there. And so I parked the van out from my house. Well, my buddy Scott shows up, you know, and you can see him. I can see him through the window, you know. He's kind of like, who's that? Who's that van belong to? You know, so I come out and I was like, hey, man, hey, where's your truck? You ready to go? I was like, there's our wheels, buddy. Party van. Oh, yeah. So we load up all this beer and booze, and we are ready. I think that my brother either wrote down directions to his place or told me over the phone and I wrote them down. So I got this on a piece of paper. This is before cell phones. This is 1992, 93. I can't remember. Long time ago. No cell phones. And so I got my thing. I got my paper of the instructions. This is like 5 states away. And I've got my road atlas. My buddy brings a 22 cordless hole punch. It's like, you don't think that's extreme? You never know. And he's right, you never know. So, all right, we're off. Scott is running back and forth like a dog would. You know, when you get them in a vehicle and you let them loose, and they're just, what, like they're going to miss out. So he's running back and forth in this van, screaming, yelling. It's got the surround sound, man. I mean, this is like the traveling coach. I got like 50 cassette tapes, 1991. We're jamming. And I laid the ground rules out before we left my house. It's like, we're not smoking in the van. We're not going to drink in the van. You know, this is my boss / owner's, company owner's personal property here. And I forgot to mention, before they turned us loose with it, or turned me loose with it, Paul told me, you know, yeah, she just had it detailed. It's like, yeah, that's kind of a bummer. Like professionally detailed, you know, shampooed the carpets, everything is like pristine, and it was brand new looking. And the thing was only like maybe 3 years old anyway. Okay, so we're going. Scott's running back and forth through the van. We're screaming. We got the stereo jamming. Well, my rules lasted all of about, 6 miles, maybe 3 miles. I don't know. I gotta smoke while I'm driving, so I smoke. We're smoking now in the van. You know how that stinks up a vehicle. I hear it from the back. I'm like, what was that? Dude, I gotta have a beer. It's like, well, get me one, you know. And away we go down the open highway with the sun in our face and the wind in our hair. Craziness, man. About the halfway point, about Kansas City. We goofed around all day, all the departure time, throw that all out the window. I'm pretty well intoxicated by Kansas City. The instruction paper that I had, where to turn and how to navigate Kansas City the best way, you know, that had blown out the window, or something happened to it. I don't know. So we're just clueless. We're lost. There's a perfectly good atlas there, but who's got time for that? We're just wing it. Just go. We hit Kansas City about rush hour. I got a heavy buzz at minimum. My buddy is just plumb blitzed, you know. Somehow we make it through Kansas City. And I should mention, too, Scott had the uncanny ability to just pass. I mean, he could sit in a chair for 5 minutes, and if he sat still and didn't say anything, and that was without drinking. Drinking magnified it. Here's a photograph. That's from the inside of the van with an actual 35 millimeter camera, you know, while driving inebriated, because that's 1992. So I'm on my own now. And we're getting kind of close, and I'm starting to get the heavy head. Maybe starting to swerve a little bit in the boss's van. I just had success written all over it. Well, we make it. We make it to our destination. Somehow. And, you know, get to the brother's house, you know, and fall out of the van. Scotty had come to before this, you know. He's back on a roar, back on a tear. We're both drunk. Did you steal a van? You know. It's like, no, it's my boss's. Might have been better if you stole it. I don't really remember that whole week, kind of, sort of. I don't really know what we did during the days. I mean, a lot of drinking, obviously. And we kind of looked for, my brother lives in a little bitty town. Nothing going on there ever, day or night. It's a nice place to live, you know, but as an 18-year-old boy, basically, young man, we wanted action, you know, we wanted to be going. So we'd go into the neighboring city, the big city, you know, sometimes at night, or we'd go into the neighboring town. We did meet some guys. We met one guy, this haggard old guy with an old dirty jean jacket and all this. We were playing guitar on a tennis court, drinking, of course, and here this bum stumbles out of the woods, and you boys play guitar, you should meet my friends. And I'm just like, oh, we don't know this guy from nothing. Well, Scott is like, yeah, let's go. I'm like, are you out of your mind? And he, you know, he's got the, be fine. We drive through there's no chance of getting out of here, you know. He's going to kill us and scalp us, and, you know, it's going to be bad. And this old dilapidated house is hard to know, really, because it was so dark. And we get to this guy's house that's his buddy. Well, then his buddy starts calling his buddies. They all play guitar and sing. It was this whole concert, you know, party. Supposedly, or so he told us, I don't know why he would lie about it, the guy that owned the house was one of the designers of the Epcot Center in Florida, you know, the big golf ball looking thingy. And he took us up, showed us his office upstairs in his house. It was, you know, back then, massive printers, all computers, and I was like, this is nothing like the rest of the house. And he told us, should have remembered that a little better, but I do remember him telling us, you know, boys, there's a time to party, and then there's a time where you got to be able to pay the bills, which was really great advice that just, you know, time for that. Just on a freak whim, you know. Just met the old haggard dude, and he introduces us to this guy and his friends. That was a couple of the nights there. It's a heck of a deal. Coming back, same thing, you know. Now we're going to have to ration the liquor, kind of, because we drank so much while we were there. Also, I failed to mention in this, there was some deal where, during the daytime, and my brother was with us, and I may have been in the wrong, probably. I don't know. I can't remember. But it was a construction area, I think, and these bikers. And one way or another, I almost hit the guy on the motorcycle. He's screaming and yelling and pounding on the side of the van. I'm like, hey, this is the boss's property. You can't. It was a serious, you know, little incident at the time. And there's 3 or 4 other biker guys, and they're all screaming and cussing. And next, I'm watching this, and then, you know, trying to drive through a construction zone with all the barrels and everything and not wreck the boss's van. And all of a sudden, the bikes just, they just, you know, seeing in the mirror, it's like, what had happened? Well, Scott pulled the hole punch on him. Funny now, at the time, it's like, all right, just go with it. Well, way back from the trip, we're same thing, except we're just have punished our livers, you know, for non-stop weekday and night. I couldn't do it anymore. just about to black out behind the wheel. I'm like, dude, we gotta stop. We stop at a hotel in Kansas City. So that extends the trip another day. Now we're running into a time issue because I couldn't remember, still can't, if I was supposed to have that van back by 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon or 5 o'clock. Either way, now we're a day behind schedule. Rolling in the next day, this is Sunday now. About 60 miles from home, I see a brand new Z71 on 2-lane traffic. I was like, that was Paul right there. And I instantly put in my head, you missed the thing. You were supposed to have the van back. Oh boy. We cruise into town, the last bit of money, I took enough money to party on and gasoline, and that's about it. I may not have probably didn't have any other money to take, just gonna come home broke. Seems like a good strategy. All right, no more cigarettes. Gotta put the windows down, get this thing aired out, and we start looking around and there's cigarette butts, there's crushed beer cans. The whole thing reeks of beer and cigarettes. There may or may not have been like a one-hitter in there. I don't know. The van is a disaster, inside and out. The reality of the situation, kind of like, oh boy. And I'm about half drunk. It's like, we got to clean this thing, dude. We go to the shop where I worked at. All windows down. We wash the outside of the thing. Scott's in there working. And this is the middle of summer. Inside an enclosed vehicle, scrubbing that carpet, vacuuming shop. We got all the tools we need at the shop, I'm trying to wipe up, throwing out beer cans. Like, well, you can't throw them in the work dumpster. That's not good. So I'm packing them in trash bags, throwing them in my personal truck, Lose track of time, and then I'm like, oh, there's no gas in it. Well, I was kind of always taught that you return something in as good a shape as you borrowed it in. Well, when we left, it had about a third of a tank of fuel or something like that. I'm about out of money. There's a gas station right up the road. It's like, I got to throw some gas in this. Get up there. I get it about, I don't know, close to a half tank full. It's like, that's more than it had when we left, good enough. Park the thing back, lock the doors. The van looks good now. I can't attest to the smell of it, but we sprayed some stuff, I don't know. I go back to work Monday, and everybody's looking at me. Like, what happened? What's going on? I think you're in some trouble. You're going to have a talk with Paul. Like, what did I do? And all I could think was, you left something in the van, He found some beer cans under a seat, or something may or may not have been in the ashtray. This is not good. This is your employer. We get about 11:30. Paul shows up at the office, and you get a chance to stop by my office. Okay, will do, sir. I come in, have a seat. Paul's, how'd it go? How was your trip? Oh, this is great. Really relaxing. I know it was. Thanks so much for loaning me the van. It just, ride in comfort. He says, yeah, about the van. And I got 1,000 different scenarios of how this is all bad. I somehow crushed the back end, maybe. I don't know. I got all these. Did I do damage? Did I leave something in there? I don't know. And I figure silence is golden. And he says, yeah, the van was here, and the wife jumped in it, and she was ready to take our little trip, and she said it was completely out of gas. And I said, well, that can't be. I put gas in it. That was the last thing I did before I brought it back to the shop and parked it and locked it up. No, she said it was completely out of gas. And I didn't know if he was messing with me. He wasn't really the type to do that, And I'm like, is this the softening up for when he says I found X and Y and Z underneath the seat or something? I don't know. And I'm just like, I don't understand. There was every bit of, close to half a tank of fuel in there. And he said, well, the wife said it was empty. And she had stopped and put fuel in it, and she was not happy about that. I don't know why pumping fuel is beyond his wife. Neither here nor there. They were kind enough to loan it to me. I thought that I had returned it in a little better shape than I borrowed it in. That was his beef, that there wasn't enough fuel. According to him, there wasn't any fuel in the van. And I'm just thinking in my head, that's it. You have no idea. Like, you're not in trouble or anything. I just want you to know that if this happens again, you could have used the company fuel card and fueled up the van and just make sure they're full of fuel, Yes, sir, will do. I apologize for the inconvenience, and please tell the wife that I apologize. And okay, all's well that ends well. I'm glad you enjoyed your trip. Hey, thanks for letting me take the van. The thing of this is, I basically I didn't rely on anything at the time, but it was like luck, maybe hope. The trouble with that is luck and hope are not plans, and they are not strategies. It's probably the older version. Well, it's obviously the older version of me talking, but let's extrapolate what could have been. Maybe a DUI in the boss's van on the way. The van gets impounded. I don't have the money to get it out of there. What are you gonna make that phone call? Hey, your van's impounded because I was drinking behind the wheel. Maybe get in a collision because you're inebriated behind the wheel. Maybe run into the guy at the tennis courts who took us to see his buddy that played on their nut jobs. Maybe they steal the van. Any number of things could happen. Maybe the biker guy has his own cordless hole punch, and that could go south on you real quick. Any number of things could have unfolded, and fortunately, luckily, they didn't. But you can't see those things in advance. I never thought it through. I never thought the stupidity involved in borrowing my boss's vehicle to take a multi-state trip the way I was living at the time. Pretty lucky. Pretty fortunate. Now, all in all, it was a blast. We had our fun. So at some point in there, we played indoor volleyball with sand. There was a sand court. Is that what you call a volleyball? I don't know. I don't remember. There's a reason that I can't remember. It was fun. Sin is always fun for a minute. I guess all's well that ended well. But rest assured, hope and luck are not plans or strategies. Maybe find some value in it. If nothing else, should have been entertaining to watch, I hope. Thanks for watching. Appreciate your time. See you next time.